Hello and welcome to another episode of the ThreeWill podcast. We've got our weekly get together with Tommy and Danny here. Hey Tommy, how's it going?
Good. Good morning, Dan.
Good. I know you can't see this, but he's looking mighty sharp today. He's got a nice suit on. We must
time to go talk to the people.
Time to talk to the people. So we're pulling you out of your closet, and we're going to have you go talk to some folks. You look great, by the way. Oh, and you even have the Starry Night socks.
That's right. Yes, I've already had a comment on that this morning.
I like that. I think I'm starting to get into the socks thing too. You got to snazz it up somehow. And
that's right. When you have a blue suit and a white shirt, you need something snappy.
And let's not talk about your boxers. I don't want to hear nothing about that. But well, thanks for joining me. And this week we've been talking a lot as we sort of prepped for 2016 and did some of the business planning stuff and got together and just internally talking through a couple of ideas and what we're seeing our clients asking us for and sort of what's the direction for the year. And we've talked on previous episodes about migrations and how those, our last little get together, we talked about complex migrations. What I'd like to talk about today is the practice areas that we're going to have and sort of how did we decide on them at a high level. And so for those who don't know, you can come to the website. You can see what the practice areas are there. We're focused on migrations, on portals, on app dev, and sustainment. So let's talk about those at a high level.
Okay. So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things that we do, and it always helps to put things in buckets. So, our customers have a better idea of how we can help them. Mm-hmm. And as we have started thinking about and organizing our areas of disciplines that we have, practices that we're building as a company, we saw that migrations is that first step into helping organizations get to the cloud. Uh-huh. And we think that's important for the companies that we serve. We see that that's where the Microsoft stack is going. That's where we see in general enterprise computing is going. So we're helping those organizations get to the cloud. And that's in that migration practice. And then we see the portals practice is the way to configure and get the most out of the platform. I mean, that's what got us excited about SharePoint, 7-8 years ago, was to be able to take the area of collaborative solutions and leverage a platform. And the first step of that is configuring it and enhancing that to get the most out of your portals, either being extranet, intranet, or information-based portals. And then app dev is really a big passion of ours as an organization. We have a lot of engineers, a lot of people like to open up Visual Studio and crank out, solutions that are not available to you, out of the box, and to be able to take that 20% that's left on the solution in a portal and customize that and build something that's purpose built for that organization. And then our last practice is sustainment, and that practice is about a long-term commitment to our customers to get the ROI that they need out of the solutions that we build. And anytime you have a solution, a technology-based solution, it needs a certain level of care and feeding. And we find that we can help not be that traditional support organization that we're taking level 1 calls on a help desk, but the people that understand how your application was built, what needs to be done to continue to keep that healthy and extend that solution in small ways over time.
I like that this is sort of like, seems like it's stepwise and they build on each other. It's really almost, with some customers, it's the way that we're engaging with them is first, you got to migrate, and then we want to configure, and then we want to customize, and then long term we want to support what we put out there.
Yeah. And I think it shows a level of maturity of our organization that, we started off early on just wanting to do app dev. Uh-huh. And really from a technology for technology's sake because we love technology. And then we felt that looking at SharePoint, back in 2007 is a way to drive towards a business solution quicker. So we built that maturity of, we do app dev, but we've got a platform that solves the majority of the problems that we help customers with. And then over time we saw, we like the new shiny of app dev, but to really make our customers successful, we need that sustainment practice. We need to make sure we're around to help to keep that application going. And then what's evolved lately is this whole practice of migration.
That's great, Tommy. So that hits, I think, all the different practice areas at a high level. Maybe let's just go a little bit deeper into each one of them. And starting off with migration, give me a little bit more of the backstory there with us. I know migrations have been around for a while, but tell me a little bit more about that.
Well, migrations is actually a new practice for us. Have we done migrations in the past? Yes, but we haven't focused in on it and said we're going to be the best at this and what are we going to be the best at. And as we see the evolution of where collaboration is going today, it is going to the cloud. And it's been there for a while with a lot of services out there today that are kind of the new players in that space. But for Microsoft, there's a legacy of all those services that were stood up to support collaboration were on premises, within your firewall. So as we're looking at organizations and helping them get to the cloud, because that's where we think they need to be over time, we're tackling really the difficult kind of move to the cloud scenarios. It's one of those things that you have to figure out once. And after you get to the cloud, you're evergreen.
Yeah.
There are no more migrations. And so we've kind of stood away, kind of let migrations go past us in the past.
Yeah.
Because they were more kind of plug and chug and didn't take a lot of thought and a lot of engineering expertise to do. But as we see people go into the cloud, Microsoft wants to make it easy. They talk about it being easy, but it's not easy.
Yeah.
There's a lot of thought and work and automation that needs to take place for you to kind of have an effective migration. So we're cracking that nut and enjoying doing that. It brings our app dev experience to play and allows us to help customers make that final migration.
That's great. Yeah, it seems like what we're doing has been focusing in on some of the more complex migrations as well. In particular, since our background with Jive that's been helpful to get customers moved over. We've built a tool to help do that. And then I know more recently with some of that project work with getting someone who's on Office 365 dedicated over to multi-tenant. I think there's some places there where we really have a leg up on a lot of other folks, and we really would be able to help out folks in similar situations to make the move.
So Danny, the Jive to SharePoint migrations and dedicated to Office 365 multi-tenant are really the hot areas for us for migration. Our app dev experience, we like to be able to exercise that kind of muscle in how we approach migrations. And so we're taking on the more complicated scenarios that need to have more than just an off-the-shelf tool to get that done. So, we're partnering with a migration company to take their tool and enhance that.
We can use their name. It's
okay,
Metalogix.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Okay. And that's been very exciting for us because they've made a significant investment in being able to do cloud migrations well and fast. So we've done the enhancements around that to really orchestrate that on a large scale, leveraging Azure and being able to scale that out to really move that stuff very quickly and effectively. And then in the area of Jive to SharePoint, we've done quite a few connectors to SharePoint over our history. And knowing the Jive API, we've found some customers say, I'm looking to go in either direction. I mean, we see it going from Jive to SharePoint more often. And in that scenario, we're helping companies, be able to preserve that investment they've made in their collaboration. And moving from one platform over to another can be a difficult thing. And we're thrilled that we're able to do that very well.
The next practice is the portals practice, which is the good old fashioned, we help a lot of customers out with they use SharePoint for their intranet, or they use it. We also have done a lot of work with people with extranets. I think some people get concerned about setting up the security right in an extranet. And so through the years have just built up some, good experience about how do you use SharePoint when you're doing internal collaboration inside of a company. There's a couple of areas that I know where we focused in on, search and social and those document management apps, just some sort of good bread and butter things that we use when we're creating a portal for customers.
Yeah. And that, portals in SharePoint, really in particular, that is where we got our initial identity of, well, what do we do as an organization that's unique? And, we came from a general app dev background. And when we approached SharePoint at that time, all the SharePoint partners were people standing up and just using out of the box SharePoint capabilities. Mm-hmm. And where Microsoft created that capability of extending that in very sophisticated ways. And we jumped on that bandwagon and really helped organizations go that extra mile where they got to 80% of a solution with SharePoint out of the box. And we helped them make that 100% solution and an integrated solution. So that continues to be a strong part of who we are as an organization. We've got so much knowledge over the years in that area, and we're helping companies think about how do I do that now in the new world of the cloud? And, that brings in Azure and a number of things, and it becomes a little bit more complicated. So we're helping those organizations figure out what is that next step of being able to bring a portal to the cloud.
Yeah, and this one, I sort of classify some of the stuff we do with workflow. Some of the Nintex stuff falls underneath this, I think. And also some of the BI stuff. I see BI and reporting falling underneath portals as well.
Right. Yeah, portals is that Swiss Army knife. Everything kind of surfaces in a portal. And so it can mean a lot of different things. Mm-hmm. And I think, we are helping organizations go to the cloud. It's a big part of what we're doing, but we also are seeing a lot of people still stay on premise. Mm-hmm. And there's good reasons for that. But we're also helping demystify, getting to the cloud. Mm-hmm. And that is, we're in that transitional period and we're helping organizations figure that out. Kind of going to the cloud on their own terms was our theme last year as we talked about it.
Next one's app dev. It's actually creating either the vertical or line of business applications that, it really is our heritage, sort of what we grew up with. Even before we worked here at ThreeWill, we were, focusing in on line of business type of applications. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, that is an area that is so ingrained into us. I think if you talk to the average consultant, software engineer at ThreeWill, they love app dev. They really love creating things and to be able to do difficult things from a code perspective, but create something that's very useful to the business user. Mm-hmm. And, the reason we went into the portals area was to be able to get to business value very quickly. And we love collaborative apps. But we're starting to see in this new world, all the custom work that you do to create a polished collaborative environment is you're doing now pure app dev. It's not SharePoint app dev. That SharePoint piece of it is not as ingrained in the way you approach a solution that has to involve SharePoint. I don't want to geek out on it, but at the end of the day, it's web service calls to SharePoint versus running on the SharePoint server.
You're not going to hear me fall to the floor.
So our stop
there.
Danny,
are you okay?
Yeah.
Did I hurt you?
Yeah,
you okay, son?
Yeah. So we're not going any deeper there, but when it comes to app dev, there's this. It's a complex world with all the choices that you have out there, all the different frameworks that are coming out in the wild. And, we're putting a lot of energy around setting standards there and how can we do things that we think are long-term viable approaches to app dev. So that is a whole podcast in itself.
Yes.
You can bring in someone like a Pete and really geek out on
I
that
just
topic.
had, just the other day talking with Eric about channel and sort of what's happened with the typical app dev development nowadays, which it's more of he's creating using JavaScript frameworks and HTML. And I was joking around with him. I was just saying, did you ever think in your career that you would, 10 years later, you would be using JavaScript and HTML to create an enterprise solution? And he's like, no, but it works well for a distributed app. It's just, so it's funny how we've gotten to this point.
Yeah, I think there's still people that are bitter today about that direction. And, you have to embrace it.
Yeah.
And, everything has its pros and cons. And, I just was talking to someone on a project and they were doing a scripting type solution and it wasn't type safe. So there was a typo and that typo would have been caught in a compile. Yeah. But, in script, there's ways to get around that with TypeScript and of course it's another thing that Pete can geek out on. But I think the whole, movement to JavaScript based frameworks, we're well versed in that and trying to stay ahead of the curve to help our customers.
The last practice is the sustainment practice. And we've been starting to get contact by a lot of companies for more like multi-year support agreements. And I call it support / managed services / whatever the heck you want to call it. They just need a long-term partner because they're building these apps on SharePoint and they need somebody there for the long term. Right. Tell me more about sustainment.
Yeah, and we call this solution sustainment, and I know it drives you crazy, Danny.
What drives me crazy?
That we're coming up with a new term for something that makes it hard for people to identify with. That's okay. And I think we've done that on purpose because the whole thing of managed services, we are not a managed services organization. We provide that knowledge to keep your IP going around your solution. So if we hand something off and we go away, most likely that is going to die on the vine. There's no one that has the intimate knowledge around that application to keep it healthy and for it to grow. So when we're working with organizations, the large organizations have their own support staff. They only have their own managed services. They're not outsourcing that. Some of them are. And we're not looking to be the HP to outsource all of XYZ Fortune 500 companies' managed services. We're not built for that. But what we are built for is helping organizations keep their solution healthy. So it's usually at a third tier support. So, the organization's keeping the OS going. They're keeping the SharePoint patches going. And then we come in when all of a sudden the application doesn't function the way they expect it.
Or they might hire somebody out to do those managed services as well.
They might. And we've got partners in that space that we work with.
We may be providing. It's just funny. More recently, I have gotten, like for instance, one of the RFPs that I've gotten recently, they called it SharePoint Application Managed Services. I know managed services is a dirty word around here, but it sounds a lot like what we do in solution sustainment.
It is. And I like the application development.
You like the application
management service. Right. I think what we have to stay away from is we're not keeping the infrastructure lights on. Yeah. That's not who we are as an organization. That doesn't mean that we'd never go there, but to kind of be honest with our customers of, where we're focused and how we can help. Yeah. It is sustaining their solution.
It's level 3. It's really, And that's, I like us staying in that situation because really if you're talking level 1 or 2, it is the person calling up and saying, I want to go configure this, or I can't get access to this. And we're just not set up to help out in that way. So good stuff. I think this is, My only disappointment with all these practice areas is we have 4 of them and not 3. So I just say, we've got 3 of them plus the sustainment is the long term, is the sharpen the saw. It's the thing that we have that keeps, what we do around for a long time and really helps people out after we're done with that initial development and or moving them over. So it's an important aspect of what we do. So.
Right. Yeah. In sustainment, all those practices, those 3 practices of migration, portals, and app dev, they happen within sustainment. Sustainment is almost a way to package it up and create a long-term relationship. And I think that's the right thing to do. I think we had a hard time figuring out if we wanted to do that. And we've had customers ask us to do that, and we've turned it down. And now we're saying we're all in. We think that is the way to make sure you get ROI, because developing the solution and handing it over is not going to solve the problem. It really is seeing that solution through for its life cycle and making sure you get that ROI.
As we wrap up here, any ideas for what stuff you want to talk about for next week? You want to follow up on this, or is there anything else you want to sort of tease people about as far as
I can tease people about
Sure.
this, and I've been trying to make some time for this. I haven't yet, which is looking at what is a proper methodology for doing a migration.
Okay.
So the work that we do in portals and app dev, it fits in this box called Scrum. And I'd like to talk a little bit about, what fits in a migration project. Should you use Scrum? Should you not? What are better methodologies? And I've been noodling on that and doing some research to say, do we need to change our practice? Because right now we use Scrum and it works. But is there better ways? And we're always challenging ourselves to say, is there a better way to do it?
Awesome. So let's people tune in next week if you want to learn more about that. Thank you, everybody, for taking the time to listen to this. Thank you, Tommy, for joining me.
You're welcome, Danny.
Absolutely. And drop by our website, absolutely, to learn more about our practice areas. If one of these areas seemed like something that we could help you out with, obviously contact us through our contact page. You'll get a follow-up in just a matter of seconds from me, and we'll set up a quick, no pressure 30-minute call just to find out more about what you're trying to do. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen today, and have a wonderful day. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.